All right, it's 2 o'clock. We'll call this board meeting to order. Would you stand with me for the invocation? Father, thank you for this day and for the blessings that we have to serve others. And I pray, Father, that you'd be with our world in this day and age, especially our nation and our state. I pray, Father, that as things happen, that we keep our eyes on you. We ask for clarity of thought and wisdom today, and we ask you bless this board, bless the administration, and bless the ones that are here today to present us with options. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Tommy, will you lead us in the pledge to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Rice, will you lead us in the pledge to the Texas flag?
Yes, sir. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Be seated. Are there any public comments that need to be addressed at this time? Is this, if the board has questions, is this also the time for the board to ask questions?
Well, the only item on that's really public comment, and so if we move into the agenda item, then the board can discuss that. The board can't really discuss other things besides what's on the agenda.
Okay. No public comments. We'll move on to unfinished business. It says none on the agenda. If I remember correctly, we had a lot of unfinished business at our last meeting.
That one's the one that's we're going to go forward with in February.
Does the board have any questions about there being stated no unfinished business?
I seem to remember us tabling and then untabling an issue that we said we would talk about in November, but I may be.
I recall the same thing.
We tabled and untabled the budget, I think it was. Is that it? We were gonna postpone the approval of the budget, but then we decided that we had to actually approve the budget at that meeting.
But we were going to rediscuss the income portion of the budget
At this meeting?
at this meeting.
Okay, we aren't prepared.
I don't think
for
we
that.
can legally now, can we?
Right.
No, I mean, it's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
And the minutes will be available, you said, in a few days?
Yes.
Any other comments about unfinished business? None. All right, we'll move on to our new business. Mr. Swanson?
Yes, we had proposed this as a special meeting to consider the acquisition of the EZNet and NG911 services. And what we have before us is a presentation opportunity by the vendor AT&T that can actually walk us through what that acquisition would provide for the 911 district. If you would be the pleasure of the chair, I would turn the mic over to the folks from AT&T to make that presentation such that we could have a discussion around that.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate you for letting us take the time to talk to you today a little bit about NextGen 911 and ESINet. Basically, what we're wanting to talk to you about is where you're at today and then where 911 has gone and is going. So in the, I guess, the legacy 911 world, the 911 call is point A to point B, you know, from a landline to 911 center. And what ESINet is in NextGen 911 is taking all that legacy 911 services that were copper-based and getting them all to newer IP-based services. And what that enables you to do is bring in, instead of just having voice, you can have voice, video, data, cell phone calls, and have accuracy, location accuracy with those mobility calls, and bring in all sorts of other layers to help you reroute 911 calls, make it more secure, and make sure that 911 network is never down for inbound calls for you. A lot of diversity, a lot of failover options, and that's kind of where we're going to talk about this today. The presentation here is pretty short and high level, but as I said, you know, it's moving from that old legacy network to bringing in, you know, all these different ways that people now connect to 911. Studies have shown that by the year 2026, more than 50% of 911 instances inbound to 911 call centers will be non-human originated, meaning it's not someone just picking up a phone and calling 911, right? It could be an alarm system, it could be a, you know, OnStar, something in a car, an Apple Watch, things like that. So making sure that your 911 centers have the capability of taking those sorts of calls is kind of what we're leading to. And to get to that point, we look at all your equipment you have in place today and needs to refresh and update that, make sure it is compatible with moving to this next gen 911. And then step 2 would be then rolling out the ESINet portion of that. And yeah, I kind of spoke to that a little bit already, but
Real quick, what's
Yeah.
ESI stand for?
Emergency Services IP Network
Thank you.
PSTN?
is
right, public switch telephone network.
telephone network.
Yes. A lot of accurate acronyms.
Can you
So,
use as few of those as possible so I can, I'm
Yes.
trying to follow you. really.
Yes, absolutely. Apologize for that. Yeah, Billy, I'll let you go ahead and chime in here if you want to. I know we have some network diagrams coming up, if you want to take over from there and kind of walk through a couple of those.
Yeah, can you go back just a second?
Yeah.
One more. So, when we're talking Emergency Service IP Network, ESINet, on the left-hand side, with the public switch telephone network, that was probably created right around 1960, somewhere in the 60s. And mainly it was just a point-to-point connection. When it started, it was basically if you had a phone in your house, then if you needed police, if you needed fire, if you needed EMS, it was a 4-digit, 7-digit, 6-digit telephone number wherever you live, you know, to specifically call, you know, that particular agency. It has transitioned and moved forward into enhanced 911. Enhanced 911 basically means is that now everybody can actually dial 911. And then we had some, it would be some 911 equipment that would, at least for, well, everywhere else, but I was specifically talking Abilene, you have 2 central offices here. You have Owen and Orchard. Owen is over on the loop, and then Orchard is downtown. And then Orchard is your main center for call routing of 911 calls. And so that's the brains. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we get into some of the drawings. And so anybody that dialed 911 would hit Orchard, and then it would actually send the call to the respective PSAP, whether it be Abilene PD, whether it be SO. And then we had a little, it would be a phone that would answer it, and then ultimately, and then we had a what we call an alley on the stick with automatic location identification, which basically gives you your name, your address, what we call English language translation, which is police, fire, and EMS, which basically says, okay, this is where we need to route the call, you know, to get somebody out to your home. Today, it runs on something called CAMA, which is centralized automated messaging accounting, which really is what we did long distance calls on way back. It is a copper circuit, and if you have 2 call appearances out of PSAP, then you would have 2 CAMA circuits out there.
And so that's what y'all have today. That's what a lot of people across, Texas and across the nation is utilizing camera circuits. We've used those for, I know since the 70s. And so where do we need to go in regards to the SINet, Emergency Service IP network, is a transition from those camera circuits to what we call IP delivery, which is Internet Protocol. And we'll take that into account, and I'll show you a diagram. And because ultimately, today, when in the world that we are on the public switch telephone network and the camera circuits, if you dial 911, it usually takes anywhere from 8 to 9 seconds to get the call to the PSAP to get the answer. As we transition to ESINet, it's almost automatic, because we've transitioned from a copper-based analog signal. If you know what an analog signal is, take an S and turn it on the sideways, and it looks like this. But IP is nothing but ones and zeros. And so we convert that to ones and zeros all the way down to the new equipment that, to the Vesta equipment. Okay, you don't need an ESINet on that, because the Vesta system or any 911 equipment basically receives ones and zeros, IP, all the way to it. So I know I'm getting a little, ask any questions as you.
What happens if the internet goes down?
Okay, this thing does not run on the internet.
It never touches.
It never touches the
public
internet. It
even though it's
never
called
touches the public internet.
Internet protocol.
So what would be the breaking point? What structure or algorithm would be the breaking point?
Well, the breaking point, what I like to call, and we'll start at we'll start at Orchard, going out to, we'll just go to Abilene PD, for instance. Okay, that's where your 911 equipment is. Okay, and then from your 911 equipment, then you have cabling going out to your PSAP. If it's remote, if it may be in the same building. Okay, the main thing that really kills a network is cut fiber or cut cable. I like to call it a backhaul thing. There's all sorts of contractors that are out in the field today when building and stuff, and they backhaul, even though they mark it, the backhaul comes in and cuts the cable.
So the same as copper?
Exactly. Same as copper, whether it's, today we actually have fiber, in the ground as well. Sometimes we lay fiber and copper, guess what, in the same ditch, which is not smart, but, but sometimes, we do, depending on the area that people live in and funding, thing. And so, yes, that certainly is an issue. The issue mainly in any type of connectivity, basically out to a PSAP is usually a cut cable. That takes the cable, yeah.
Right. So you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is nothing other than physical cutting of a cable that could interrupt this service?
No, I'm saying this is one
Yes.
thing that can interrupt that service. That's the main reason that service is, okay. Now, let's move this up a little bit, okay. No cable is cut, but the 911 call has been received at the 911 equipment at Abilene PD. Okay, there's all sorts of servers, all sorts of gateways, all sorts of routers in there. We could lose a network switch, and a network switch has a bunch of ports in it, a bunch of little slots, and your workstations are plugged into these network switches. If that network switch goes down and that workstation is tied to that network switch, we don't get the 911 calls won't get to the dispatcher. It'll hit the PSAP equipment, but I can't get the call to the dispatching workstation because this piece of equipment has gone down. We've had issues with a main server, on the Vesta system that you have, and basically the majority of the state of Texas is on Vesta, I will tell you that. And so ultimately, if a server goes down, then you could, okay, and I'm going to preface this, all right, okay, is that you could, the 911 call could get there, but I can't process it. Now, the thing that we do when we design 911 networks today, because, I'm going to back up a second. Used to, in the 911 world, back in the 60s and 70s, every PSAP had a equipment in their room. Like, okay, Sweetwater, Snyder, all the little surrounding areas over here, had 911 equipment in their room specifically, and then 911 circuits in there. So, if a cable cut was done, and/or you lost the server, that PSAP would go down, would not be able to, but it would not affect any of the other PSAPs that are around. Now, once we have moved and transitioned from backroom equipment into each individual PSAP, we've gone to something called geodiverse, which this is what y'all have, and the majority of the state does, is that we put in two systems, System 1A and System 1B. And then if this system goes down, this one takes over. So we try, since we've taken all the single point of where it was really good, we had PSAP equipment in each individual PSAP. We lost one, okay, we could still get calls routed somewhere else. But when we put calls into one central location, and then we have remote PSAPs off of that, then we need to put in some redundancy and diversity. And hence the reason why we wanted to diversify and redundify, so to speak, by putting in a 1A and 1B. Both of them do the same thing. One's just in standby. If we lose this one takes over, and all the PSAPs, remote PSAPs, report over to here. Did I lose you?
No, sir. I'm with you. Keep going.
Good. Okay. And so,
So of course, regarding to the redundancies, are they all the same sort of technology, infrastructure-wise, or do we have an option, or do other PSAPs, is it prudent to utilize dissimilar redundancies, different types of infrastructure?
the majority of times is really similar. We, for the diversity, sake, and even for y'all here, okay, is that there's multiple ways that we can diversify the connectivity between host 1A and host 1B. Okay? And so, hence that, we always want a connection between the two hosts, because if we lose this link in here, it throws everything in disarray. So we always try to do two circuits between the two hosts, primary and secondary. If I lose the and take diverse routes. One goes south, one goes north. Because if you have backhoe fade on one, this one takes over.
I mean, they won't share the same fiber at all. It'll go completely different paths. So one fiber cut can't take both down.
Exactly. In our engineering side of the house with an AT&T, and probably any other, ILAC, is that we have planning and engineer folks that would sit there and take a look, is that I need to diversify these circuits. For instance, here, just a kind of a simple example here, is that we would take one circuit through Orchard to get out to. We'd take another one through Owen out here. So it'd be diverse, basically, from the central offices. Now, where we sometimes have issues is that we can take it to the edge of the street here, but the last mile is always an issue. And what I mean by the last mile, it is from the last mile from, say, Orchard out to the PSAP, or the last mile from Owen out to the PSAP. Because sometimes it's all in the same ditch. But, and it costs money, I'm just letting you all know here, okay? But ultimately, if you want total diversification, we could take it all the way, say, from Orchard, taking a path, and then come in the south side of the building. From Owen, we could take it all the way, come into the north side of the building. So everything is totally diversified all the way around into that room.
And that's from a circuit standpoint. Obviously, as Billy already mentioned, we'd also have the equipment diversity, right? The 1A and 1B. So you're diversified on your equipment, you're diversified on your path. And then we also offer wireless backup diversity too, on the FirstNet network. So if all of that diversity is not enough, we can put a FirstNet SIM card out there, and if everything else goes down, fails, you still can fail over to the FirstNet wireless network.
And let me add to that, okay? Because I want to keep going here, is because now, but no, don't be sorry, no, you going, okay, so AT&T has multiple different circuits, I guess I should say. We can do copper, T1s, okay, we've done that, we still got them in broad.
Are they at a higher cost?
They're continuing to be at a higher cost.
Yes, they're continuing because the reason why they are going up in cost is because AT&T is trying to get away from copper, which I get it because of wet cable, static, and so yes, the cost is going up. We have something called AVPN, which is AT&T Virtual Private Network. Then we have something called ASE, which is AT&T Switched Ethernet. All these are different circuits that we can put in and diversify. You could actually, go to a company called like Conterra or who's your cable provider here?
Vexus, Taylor Telecom.
Yeah. Anyway, you can actually even go to a third-party vendor. You could use AT&T for, an ASE circuit, and then go to them for another type of circuit, because it's totally different. It's our AT&T cable, and then you've got, and so ultimately it's totally diversified. You can certainly do that. We've had customers do that all the way around.
I think when you're saying orchard, I think it's actually cedar. Are you talking about like our infrastructure?
I'm talking about AT&T central office.
Back in the day, my grandmother's phone number was OR, and my other grandmother's was OW.
Exactly.
Orchard and Owen.
Oh, yep.
Two different AT&T
These are
locations.
facility names.
That's the facility names.
For AT&T, correct.
Yeah, for AT&T. Orchard is downtown. It's 360, if I remember, that's 20 years now. 366 Cypress Street, I believe.
So those would be AT&T central offices, which are, hardened buildings that can withstand a, tornado.
And I know where the
all of our equipment's
Yeah.
hosted there, and
Yeah.
that's what the building.
Well, yeah, and because Orchard, okay, it does a couple of different functions. First off, it completes a call. If I was calling you, okay, landline, it'd go through that office and complete it, okay? But it also is the function of 911 as well. And so I'm just those circuits that I'm talking about between the two hosts, if you had remote PSAPs, so in other words, if you have a PSAP out at Dias, that's off of your system, okay, that's a remote, that's what we call a remote, then we would need cable, basically, from your host equipment to Dias. Because all 911 calls come into your host equipment, whether it's at your office, downtown, or I believe it's out at where the old Walmart or something used to be, right, out there. Kmart, yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
I know, I used to live in that, we started out in that little mobile home park, just right across the street, and anyway, then got blessed to move out to Bryan Circle. Anyway, so does that help just a little bit in regards to the connectivity?
Is any of this equipment hackable?
Anything that
Anything's
is,
hackable, right?
so I'm going to say it this way. Anything is hackable. If you're on camera circuits, which is an analog type circuit, if anything that is serial, like a 9-pin connector or 25-pin connector or anything like that, that is not hackable. They can't get into that. But anything that is Ethernet running ones and zeros is hackable.
Okay. Has AT&T had any of these that you've previously done been hacked?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
So regarding, along this line of questioning the next generation 911 and AZNet, what are other vulnerabilities that have occurred in real world situations or historically?
Well, as we mentioned, none of this will ever touch the public internet, which keeps it, safer on its own. And part of this and your equipment would also be having a firewall there for that. I haven't heard of vulnerabilities or 911 networks being hacked per se on ESINet, but.
No, and you're right. And so ultimately, we attempt to do what we call a closed network. Now, way back, it was really easy because everything was serial type, analog type connection. But as we've gone to IP, Internet Protocol, then that creates vulnerability. Now, once again, knowing that it creates vulnerability, then that means us, all the customer, or any other vendor, that they'll tend to go with, really need to take a look, and basically AT&T is going to say, I don't trust your network. And y'all need to come back to me and say, I don't trust y'all's network. So how do we prevent that? That's where firewalls come into play.
Okay.
There are several applications like a recorder, CAD machine sometimes. As we have transitioned, in technology, CAD recorder was all serial type connection. Now it's IP connection, which is an Ethernet type of cable, which is ones and zeros. And so with that, then you need to take a look and work with your IT department, work with AT&T and the recorder folks, for instance, and then make sure that any handoff that's coming from a 911, from 911 equipment, because it's basically a feed out of your vested equipment going over to your recorder, so to speak. So we need something in between, AKA a firewall, to prevent that. I can go this direction, but we do not want somebody, say a recorder vendor, not picking anyone specifically, but sometimes they have remote access into that recorder so they can do configuration. They're not here on site anywhere. So we want to prevent them to only take care of the recorder and not attempt to come back into the 911 network and try to get a hold of a dispatch station. We tried to, one case that we actually had years ago is that when you are in a IP world, somebody in Midland had a little drive from home that plugged it into a port of their server, or excuse me, of their workstation. It had a bug in it, a virus in it. It propagated from that workstation to the rest of the workstations to the other PSAPs to the server. So as you get into the technology that we have today, you really need to, one of the main things that we do, and I'm sure everybody else attempt to do it as well, but we need to understand the connectivity that is that you're trying to bring in to your system and make sure that it is blocked. And
and that's part of y'all's service that you're going to take care of.
That is something that if you guys absolutely will, absolutely. Because what works really well is if a dispatcher or a director of the agency, a PSAP kind of comes to us or says, okay, I want to do this to my equipment at the PSAP. Then usually the director gets a hold of us, if we're maintaining the call handling equipment, and then we will get together with the director, with the supervisor at the PSAP, with our IT folks within AT&T, and then actually the vendor of the machine, and then we'll talk and come up with a plan. Today, there's so many different applications in 911 today that has just absolutely blossomed, that are no longer stored locally on your 911 equipment. It used to be that way all the time. But now with the quote-unquote cloud, AWS or whatever, and every vendor, and I'm talking Motorola, talking Intrado, any 911 provider of equipment are moving their software versions to the cloud, AWS or something. Case in point for Motorola, Vesta. Their mapping is really, eventually will no longer be local, it's going to be in the cloud. It's called Aware. You have something that's called Rapid SOS, which basically is that, if it provides more information to the call taker. For instance, when a 911 call comes in, it provides your name, address, police, fire, EMS, and if you query Rapid SOS, which is the cloud, then it'll come back and say, if you're a diabetic, if you have seizures or what, it's extracurricular, not the right word, but anyway, more information about that specific person who calls in. So it's added information, to help the dispatcher. One of the things that I was going to talk about later is that usually in the old days, we didn't do texting. Okay? We didn't have iPhones, so we went to iPhones. Now what are we doing? We started doing texting. We started doing that back in 2000, 2003, something like that. So now where we are is that if somebody calls in for a wreck that's out on 277 out here somewhere, then hopefully now we can actually do video. We can actually type in their telephone number, send a message out there to them, we can talk to them, and then if we want to ask them to do a video and you're willing to, then we can do a video of that specific incident. That's where we are, the 911 authority is going. It's more information, more information, more information. But as we take things to the cloud, so to speak, what we need is more bandwidth. And what I mean by bandwidth is that usually, and I'll use the analogy of PVC pipes. A 1-inch PVC pipe, you can only put so much water in that PVC pipe. Well, as if you need more water and you want more pressure, then you go up to a 10-inch PVC pipe. I can put more information, more water in that 10-inch PVC pipe than I can one. So we need more space, and it takes a lot of space, and it all depends on the number of positions that are sitting at a PSAP. Just a lot of configuration that needs to go into it. So as 911 grows, and it's going to continue to grow because everything is actually going to the physical cloud. Even the call handling equipment, there's one provider out in the world right now. All their backroom equipment that I've been talking about, that's been sitting in your back room, okay, and then we transitioned to maybe back room of an AT&T central office. Well, that equipment is now in the AWS cloud, so to speak. So the only thing, the 911 calls all come into that, and then the only thing we have out at the premise is a workstation. So the 911 is really growing. And adding more information, more apps, I guess I should say, and you can you add to that. And so what we try to do is that whatever is coming out, then we try to go out to each individual agency, customer, to try to provide them some information in regards to this is what's coming out. And then we say, okay, this is the pros and cons. And then pros is that it will give you a lot of information. Cons is that you've got this one T1, that's out at your PSAP, which is like 1 megabyte, you need to up that to 20 megabytes. Change it from a 1-inch, PVC pipe to a 20-inch PVC pipe. And so, which ultimately, that's what we try to do, is do the pros and cons of any application that's out on the field. Now, with AT&T, there's a lot of applications that's out there, but it has to go through AT&T labs for testing. So if Vesta is coming out with, it's called MapAware, then it's tested in the Motorola world, then it's got to go to AT&T labs. We have to approve it. If it's not approved, then we send it back out that way to them. So we will not deploy any application that's even in the cloud or whatever, not in the cloud, then ultimately we will only deploy it to a customer if it's approved through AT&T.
And that would be part of this solution. I believe today your Vesta software is on 7.2, and AT&T is tested and approved all the way up to Vesta 8.0, so it would be a software upgrade as well on all your equipment.
And to your point, Jerry, that is very true. What we attempt to do is, because every vendor, I don't care who it is, 911 CPU vendor, call handling equipment vendor, their software, they're always doing an upgrade of some shape, form, or fashion. And so we have to make sure that the agency knows about it, and then if they want this specific type of application, such as aware mapping, 7.1 will not accept it. And so we will need to upgrade your software version of Vesta up to, I think the latest one is 8.0 something, and then we'd have to upgrade your 911 system to do that.
And that partially answers your question too, as far as vulnerabilities. It's not only new features that we're upgrading, but it's getting rid of known and new vulnerabilities too.
Exactly.
Staying ahead of that. So, after this solution's in, we don't put it in and walk away. There's still continued upgrades that happen down the road.
Right.
Free of charge?
Well.
There's no charge for the software upgrade.
There's no charge for the software upgrade. There is a cost for the upgrade. We bring in Motorola Remote. They actually got a lady that does it. It's been doing it for years. That is a charge, unless we can, have an AT&T tech, that is trained to do it, then there wouldn't be a cost.
So we have two separate CAD systems. So we have two separate, each PSAP has a separate one. APD has the Motorola Spillman, and Taylor County Sheriff's has New World Soma.
And change it to Soma.
Change it to Soma. It's not done fully yet though, right? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So they're on Soma and that's.
Okay, and that's the way it is across the state and nation. It's, and so we have to work with, whatever type of vendor that they got, so. And so.
Sorry to get you off your presentation.
No,
This,
that's what we're here for.
This is y'all's time.
Yeah.
And we want to answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
And so, let's talk a little.
Where do you want to be?
Back. Benefits. I'm going to let y'all read the benefits here, but I want to get to the true world of what each individual agency probably does. One thing is, as far as the benefits of next generation, is to start out with your tandem, your selective router, which is Orchard. And we've got probably like 30 of those central offices, selective routers across the state of Texas. They are a single point of failure. Very fortunate that since I've been doing 911, which has been over 30 years, I haven't had a failure in a selective router. The selective router is, like I said, is the brains of your 911. But in the world today, your selective router / tandem is lacking some capability. Basically, y'all have, I can't remember, do y'all have make busy circuits? Sorry. Okay. So, a make busy circuit. And let me explain what a make busy circuit is. Basically, it is a copper pair that goes from Orchard out to the respective PSAP. And is no more than a toggle switch that you can buy at Walmart. And open and close. And so what that make busy circuit is basically, let's just say that PD needed to evacuate their facility for some reason. So they go over and they activate this, make busy switch, toggle switch. And the Orchard tandem is knowledgeable enough to say, ooh, okay, I don't want to send calls to PD anymore, I want to send it to SO. And so it's just a switch of a toggle switch that says, oh, Trent, I want to go this way, oop, used to, now I need to go left. So that is what a function of a make busy switch is. Also, you only have one application if you want to overflow your call. So let's just say that PD has 4 911 workstations, and a 5th call comes in when all 4 of them are actually physically busy. So where does it go? There's some options, but usually what we do is that we overflow that to, say, SO. But that's really the only 2 options that you actually physically have within the selected router. And as I said, that, with the call setup time, with your 911 call, it usually takes anywhere from 7, 8, 9 seconds to set that call up to get it to the PSAP. Reason why it takes that is because we're using the camera circuits, the copper pair that's going out there. So by going to the ESINet, ultimately what we have is that we have 6 cores built across the United States. And every one of them, back up each one of them, are the same. And so I can, if I lost Orchard here, we'd be kind of up a creek without a paddle. If we go to ESINet and the call gets into these cores, I can lose 5 of the cores and the 6th one will still be able to process that call. And as far as the make busy circuit, we have the capability, and we call it an abandonment route. We don't do any physical toggle switch anymore on ESINet. However, there's a portal or a web that y'all agency can go to, supervisor can go to. And if I was on ESINet and I'm at PD and I need to reroute that call, then I have a little radio button that I can click and the calls will be transferred over to SO immediately. With that, with the abandonment route, I have 10 different options that I can put in. We usually don't do that, usually 1 or 2, because it can roll through, right? And then it may take 20 minutes to get the call to wherever the call needs to go. And so we hit that little, we have 10 ways that we can abandon and do that make busy circuit. Let's see here. So you can go into the portal, do that, or you can call the 911 resolution center and they'll do the reroute for you as well. Also, with ESINet, not the abandonment side, now let's go to the overflow. I got 4 positions, 5 calls come in, then I have 10 ways to send it to wherever I want to go. I can go to PO, I can go to SO. They're not there, not ready, I can go to Sweetwater. We're going to get into that here in a minute. I can do a list 10 of them, and the last one I could say, okay, I just want to go to a cell phone or an admin line at the PSAP. So the functionality of what you have today compared to going to ESINet is much improved, I should say. The main thing about ESINet is that we want to get away from the camera circuits. We want to go to what we call GIS-based routing, which is Geographic Information System. So what does that mean? Put a map of Abilene on a table, and then we have a GIS person over here, and they'll go street by street and put an XY coordinate for that specific house, or agency, or building, or whatever it is. Okay. And then it's a mapping program. This is just one layer. You can have several different. Your base map is probably your X and Y coordinate of your physical address. Second layer could be hydrants. Third layer could be sensors that you have downtown downtown Abilene, if something comes up. So we build a map, we send it into Intrado, and then ultimately we'll load it into a database. And so if you're on the ESINet, then somebody dials 911, it will hit the cloud up here. I'm going to show the diagram here in a minute. We'll hit the core site, and then our first request will go to the GIS database. And we want to try to route that call on the XY coordinate of that caller. Now, if it doesn't work, then we will fall back to the typical routing that we do today. Because we always want to route that call to the specific, we want to get that call to the PSAP.
And this is with this one that you're talking about?
Yes.
Who owns the GSI information?
The GIS information?
Yeah.
Okay, it's actually y'all. The agency owns the GIS information.
Okay.
What will happen is...
And has full access to it?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely, because we can't do anything until the agency sends that information in to us. Now, we will get, we have people on staff at Intrado. When I say we, it's Intrado who does the backside of it, is that Intrado will work with the agency to get the GIS data up to speed, which we have to have a 98 percentile rate in regards to routing. Then we'll get that, we'll load it in there and load it into the database, and then we can physically route calls, by GIS data, which is your X and Y coordinate.
So would the 911 district own the data, or would each individual agency own the data?
Usually is the 911 agency that owns the data, and usually the agency has a GIS person that works for the agency, and that's their entire job is to build this mapping out, this GIS mapping out. So it's not ours, it's not Intrado's. We can only make it work with the data that is provided by the agency.
And it's not Taylor County's, and it's not Abilene's. It belongs to the 911 district.
It's a 911 district.
It is. It's our software that services all of Abilene, or the city and all of the county.
Yeah.
The GIS services that are through admin services.
Yep, absolutely. So,
And the 911 district can give access to the individual agencies to that data.
absolutely. Also, they can actually sell that information over to somebody else if they wanted to.
Let's don't talk about that. Go ahead.
But that has nothing to do with AT&T or Motorola or whoever. That's strictly up to them and to the agency. And you can put as many layers on that map as you want. Just layer it, but the base layer, we've got to have the X and Y coordinate of each individual site to route that call. Any other questions?
No.
We did talk about the call setup time, do it really quick. 9 seconds compared to Camas circuits off of Orchard or any tandem, and it's basically instantaneous on ESInet. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, so let's go through I've got 3 diagrams here. Jared and I've got 3 diagrams here.
Yeah, you got it.
Sorry.
You got it.
Okay, so by looking at the diagram, over on the far left-hand side, what it means by subscribers, way back in the 70s, 60s, before wireless, the only thing that we had was just a phone that was sitting in the hallway, probably with a 30-foot cord, right? And so let's just kind of go through the very top line. And so if Jared dialed 911 from his phone, okay, and then his phone number, at least in we'll pick on Abilene here, it's either going to be Owen or Orchard Central Office, because that's where your prefixes are. And so it'll hit that central office, and that central office is sitting there going, okay, I'm not dialing a 10-digit telephone number to call me. Okay, I'm dialing 911. And so when I see the 911 digits, I am going to send that call over to the little gray box in the middle, and that is your tandem, that is your selected router, that is the brains of the call. And then it has a little Excel spreadsheet in the middle, or I say in there, and it basically says, okay, I need to send this over to SO. And it'll go over those Camas circuits out to the respective PSAP. So as we've transitioned to from just a telephone, then we have wireless. We got the AT&T, we've got T-Mobile, we've got whatever, all that good stuff and jazz. And it says, okay, well, we need to do wireless calls and get that to the tandem. So wireless calls go into an MSC, which is, what did I say that was? Yeah, darn. What did I say that was for? Darn.
Was it on the previous one?
I don't know.
No.
Switching center, mobile switching center. And the mobile switching center takes that call and then actually sends the call over to the selected router, and the selected router is going to route that call. Now, just a little more tidbit is that when it hits that mobile switching center, it's going to take that 10-digit cell phone, and your cell towers that you have up there is divided into 3 pieces of pie. One in that direction, in that direction, in that direction. So they put a pseudo telephone number, with these sections. They'll send that pseudo telephone number to the tandem. The tandem will sit there and go, okay, I know what this is, where it needs to go. Send it over to CO, or send it over to the PSAP, and then we do what we call an ALI query, automatic location database, which will query the ALI database, and then we'll send a connection back to the MSC, get the telephone number, cell phone number, and then we'll have your police, fire, EMS, and your number. And so ultimately, that's our goal here. And then we transition to VoIP carriers. And so then it goes into what they call the VPC, which is virtual private cloud. Virtual private cloud, yep. And we have a connection into the tandem. It does the same thing. So everything on the left-hand side is all connected directly to the tandem, which equates to a single point of failure. And so where do we want to go? We want to go to, we want to take everything away from connecting to the selected router. So you get into this particular drawing, you still see everything on the left-hand side, and then you have your providers. A foreign selective router can really equate to Orchard, or it could be a Windstream selective router, it can be a Verizon selective router. And so ultimately then all these calls get into here. to the foreign select provider, or the central office, or the switching center. And everything, as you noticed in this, is not connected to a tandem. Our goal is to move everything that's connected to the tandem into the cloud, which is in the little box under the 911 service provider. And then once it's connected to that, then we send the call to what we call the ESRP, which is Emergency Service Routing Proxy. And what is that? Take your Orchard tandem and move it up to the ESRP, and then we will add the GIS data to that as well. So everything is basically routed, sent to the ESRP, all IP, and then we do the routing, whether it's on the GIS data, whether it's what we call the tabular. Then we will send the call over SIP, which is Session Internet Protocol, out to the respective PSAP with setup time, which is almost instantaneous. And it will provide your any name, police, fire, EMS. And then, this is a slide that I think that, Charlie, I think that this is kind of what you were asking us here about transfers. What if I needed to transfer a call somewhere else other than PD?
Transfer, or if there's an outage.
Or an outage, to reroute your calls to wherever you want to go, okay? The good thing that we've got here is, if you go in this particular direction, is that if everything on this slide is kind of the same except on the far right-hand side, is that you're going to have two ESI nets, right? Okay, for Abilene. You're going to have an ESI net for PD. You're going to have an ESI net for SO. So they're all connected to the emergency service routing into our core. Also, you have WCT-COG, and I believe Sweetwater is part of WCT-COG. They are on ESI net. So we will have three, well, in this scenario, we have Taylor County, we got Abilene PD, and Sweetwater, all on the same ESI net. As long as you're connected to the ESI net, you can transfer, any call from Taylor County SO to either Abilene PD or Sweetwater or any other PSAP, for, say, WCT-COG, and vice versa.
Is all the COG 911s, that the COG administrates, are all of them already on ESI?
Yes, yes.
So they've gone away from copper completely?
They've gone away from CAMA circuits completely. Yeah, absolutely.
When did that happen?
Well, we started, let's see, the very first one that we cut was back in 2018. The first COG, I think, was 2020 is when we did it. The COG, Council of Governments, were a little gun shy at first in some of the data that we needed to provide, the Council of Governments. Once we had a big old sit down with the Council of Governments and we got everything all sort of squared away, then we started deploying. And then we deployed, I would say, man, we beat the deadline, I think probably 2 years maybe, we deployed everybody. Maybe less than that, of the COGS, of the COGS.
And that's specific to the COGS and within Texas. ESINet has been around longer than that. We've been, the first one, I know the whole state of Kansas cut over to it.
That was 2018.
Was it 2018?
2018 was the first one.
Okay.
And it was, we all did a really good job, and we didn't even know a live 911 call came through. There's a lot of testing. There's a lot of setup, a lot of testing, and we won't go in that unless you really want to.
No.
But I didn't think so. I didn't think so. And so, anybody that is on ESINet, all right, and that means agency, COGS, districts, you could send a call to El Paso, because they're on our ESInet. You send a call to San Antonio. You send a call over to Austin, where are they? If you're on the ESInet, we can provision within the steps that I was telling you about where you can transfer calls to, or if anybody's out, a cut cable or whatever is gone, and then you can transfer that call to that respective PSAP that is actually on ESInet.
And I know we had scheduled an hour, and we're at an hour. I don't
Yes, we
know
are.
who we can go over or questions. Or
Can you just quickly go through the rest of this?
Yep, absolutely.
Is that all right with the board?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and so this right here, really quickly, what this basically is if these are questions that you would need to ask any ESInet provider. AT&T's an ESInet provider, Motorola's an ESInet provider. These are just questions that you need to chit-chat with. And that's it.
Well, are you not going to answer these questions for you? Who are their current ESI net customers?
Well, so like we talked about, the COGs are, and throughout Texas, do you know the number of people who've cut over ESInet? The total number?
No.
It's we definitely can answer all these. These were kind of things to consider when moving and answer. But yeah, I mean,
We can go through it, as quick as we can. Okay, who are the current ESInet, who are their current ESInet customers? The whole state of Texas with the COGs are on our ESInet except for 4, and they went with Motorola.
Who's that?
Let's see here. Oh my goodness gracious. Anita Pitt, CT Cog, Hot Cog. I don't know who the fourth. Oh, Golden Crescent.
Okay.
All went, and everybody else on the COGs have gone to AT. Bear Metro is on ESInet. CapCog is on ESInet. City of Dallas is on our ESInet.
And are all these AT&T?
All these are AT&T that we're referring to. Yes.
Go ahead.
What is the average time to go live with i3 calls? Anywhere from, I'd say 9 months, from start to finish. What is the architecture diversity? Basically is what we would do is wherever your host equipment is that we would get with our engineering folks and diversify the circuits as best as we possibly can in regards to where we wouldn't have any backhaul fade whatsoever on those circuits. Do they go live with i3 or initially with RFAI? Okay, what the difference is that RFAI, I don't know RFAI is tabular type routing that you've got today, like on Cameron. When we use emergency service numbers, I3 is what you really want to go with. And let's see here, is the network components outsourced or carrier? Network components with AT&T is not outsourced. It is, we have built this ESInet, basically Intrado is our vendor, I guess, of choice. We built it, we stood it up. Everybody across the nation is using it. What type of customer network portal provided with the PSAP? And this is our CMP, Customer Management Portal, where you can go in and basically
You could forward calls through there. There's a radio button.
the radio button in there. You can actually see, where there's
And that's what
outages.
our dispatchers would have access to.
It wouldn't be the well, unless
The
the
person in
supervisor.
charge
would
of-
do. Yeah,
yeah.
the supervisor
Yeah.
usually.
Yeah.
Let's see, what is the time frame to deploy new sites? Ultimately, for a whole new turn-up is like 9 months. If we needed to add another PSAP, it would certainly be less than that. It's basically depending on the circuit that you need to get out to the physical, new PSAP that you're going there, and then we will work with Intrado to add that PSAP there. Do they offer SLA, service level agreements? AT&T does. I think there's like 5 of them. And basically, If we mess up, then y'all get money back.
And right now, we're well over 4 nines on the ESInet network. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Do they require upfront payment, or will they bill you later? Basically, we do not ask for money until the very first PSAP is cut. So,
We do have options though, and depending on the funding you get, if it's grant money and it has to be spent within a certain amount of year and you want to prepay for it, you can. But otherwise, Billy's right, we won't bill you until the first site's cut over.
and now there would be a bill if you wanted to use transitional data management.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, if they wanted somebody to help do the GIS data, then that's a billable option.
Just curiosity, did the COG here at West Texas Council of Governments, did they use grant money to pay for their situation?
Not any grant money that just coming up, that they're going through right now, no.
No, I mean.
But they did, but yes, they previously, you know, yeah, there was some type of grant money that they got. I don't know what that was. Let's see, we can do that. Now we're over on the right. Let's see, what testing has been performed with I3 capable CPE vendors? What we have tested on is Motorola Vista. We have tested on Intrado Viper. We've tested on Solicom equipment, which we will no longer sell anymore.
Carbon. Oh, that's CPU, okay.
I'm sorry?
No, nothing.
Okay. What are their security capabilities? Basically, within the core of the diagrams up here.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, security. We got firewalls on the left side, on the right side. We have, depending if it's a data or voice call, we send it to two different locations within the core, keep it separate. We have intrusion detection that Intrado does with us as well, just in case with it.
But just real quick, but if somebody blew up OR, the whole building, this could be run from OW?
No.
Okay. That's what, I thought that, and I just, go ahead.
So that's where we wanted to go. We want to move all connections that we sit on the left-hand side of that diagram up into the ESINet, and so that Orchard,
Be out of the equation.
it'd be out of the equation, exactly.
Thank you.
You bet. Let's see here. How is text and 911 TCC connection supported? Basically, we have the Intrado TCC that is connected into our ESINet. And so for texting, any type of texting that you do, then it would actually go to the Intrado TCC. It would go over the same call path as a voice going into your system. What are the geospatial routing capabilities? As long as we're sitting at 98% tile, then we can utilize geospatial routing all the way through. How will the proposed offering interop with other PSAPs and next generation solutions? Well, we have the capability of, first off, if such as WCT COC, if they're on our ESINet, we can do calls all the way across. If you're on ESINet here and then you want to go to transfer a call over to HotCock for some reason, that's a Motorola. We have interconnections between those. And then if we have a PSAP or an agency that is not on ESINet and a call comes in here, the calls will actually be sent, we'll take the call here, and then the call will be sent back to the tandem in this area right now, and then whatever tandem that PSAP is associated to, and that tandem will actually do the call, transfer the call to where it needs to go. Let's see.
Maintain no single point of failure.
Let's see, how does the provider maintain no single? Yep, okay, we won't do, as much as we possibly can, we will not do single point of failure. That's where we go into our engineering and planning services to diversify the circuits. Let's see. And I think that's it.
All right, how much does it cost?
Free of charge. This visit was.
No, I'm talking about what the what the district's gonna have to pay you.
Oh,
Yeah, so there's a few quotes that have been provided, so we have the quotes for the city and the county to upgrade all of their existing Vesta equipment, because it is over 5 years old and it's due for a refresh, so, and I can pull those quotes off and up and give you numbers. Separate from that, once those are upgraded, then all that equipment's gonna be ready and willing and able to connect to ESINet network. So then there is a monthly recurring charge for the ESINet, and then a small one-time charge to get that up as well. Let me pull those up real quick.
small.
I wouldn't have enough bread.
I think the equipment was right at 19 for both,
For-
just the equipment.
For the ESINet?
Oh, or at the
Yeah.
Palo Alto and Cisco.
Yeah, so Taylor County, to get all of the equipment upgraded for Taylor County was $662,000. Abilene is just over $1 million. And then for the ESINet, the monthly recurring on that for a 60-month agreement is $21,000 and change, with one-time charges of $19,000. And that could be paid monthly, annually, all up front, however you guys want to pay that, but that's what that pricing comes out to.
Stevie, real quick, this stuff that they've discussed is something that you guys are looking forward to?
I think it's something that's going to be very beneficial to our citizens of the community. I mean, it's going to be a faster, easier way for them to get help and probably more efficient, especially out in the county where you have your rural areas, or it may not be as rural services what we have now.
And do you see any additional cost to Taylor County, the sheriff's department, with the addition of this?
That I'm not sure.
Ricky?
I can't think of anything right offhand.
Okay. And so, $1.7 million is the turnkey cost to get us up and running. What's the recurring cost?
$21,000 and change.
A year?
That's a month,
That's for a 60-month term.
for a 60-month.
For 60, yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So $21,000 a month,
Yeah.
and what do we pay now?
Well, so I haven't looked at what the, so we have the cost of the camera trunks and.
What do we pay now, do you know?
Well, because of the, what
You
is
also
our?
have the Gigaman.
The Gigaman
Yeah.
is, right now, because just being on legacy circuits right now, that alone is $28,000, because there was a 30% annual, a 30% increase.
And that's a month?
That's per month,
And that will be going away very quickly, yeah.
very quickly.
If we do this?
That's gonna be going away regardless. We're
Regardless.
replacing it with updated technology that is a fraction of the cost of what it is.
Oh.
Yeah,
So if we don't do this, that 28,000 will go down?
that's still going down.
Yes.
Yeah.
When's that gonna happen?
Hopefully here within the next couple weeks.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
When you say a fraction,
I think it was replaced with a circuit that's maybe a couple thousand, 3,000 a month.
Max.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's at 2,100 a month.
yeah.
so we're going from 28,000 a month to like 3,000 a month?
For that circuit, yeah. Now, there are other legacy circuits that are billing today that will go away once we get that. So it's not just that one circuit, but that one is going away regardless.
And y'all's competitors is Motorola?
Motorola is our main competitor. There's other ESINet providers. And
Did we get a
So-
quote from any other person besides AT&T?
No, we haven't moved forward with all of that just yet. It is a requirement of the grant application and stuff.
Comtech is an ESINet provider.
So we did just
Motorola.
get an email notification on Monday, that we would actually not find out grant approval or amount. It was originally supposed to be November the 15th. It is now January the 24th. Due to the election.
Was it January 24th? Yep.
Yeah, it was January.
Okay.
Well, that was my next question, is where are the funds coming from?
Yeah, what's our?
And you mentioned
fund
grant,
balance
I don't know
right
anything
now?
about a grant.
The current fund balance, I think it's 2.5. I don't even know.
It's slightly over 2.5 million or so,
Yeah,
right
I
around
think it
there.
is right now.
So if we do this, we're basically broke, right?
Without the grant funding, we would spend the predominance of the fund balance available. So we did submit a grant application through the folks at the state, and we asked for 1.8 million around the ESRI, our ESINet implementation 9G11, and we asked for another 100,000 to support the GIS elements that we spoke of here at the setting.
When will
too.
we know if that comes in or not?
January 23rd, 24th.
January 24th.
Next year.
And so you're not expecting any action on this today?
What we would ask for is the board's approval to move forward with the acquisition exercise. We basically have to put together a procurement package that would be compliant with the grant
Okay,
application.
hang on just a second. Say that again.
So what we would ask for today is a motion and approval of a decision to allow the district, the 911 district administration, to move forward with an acquisition exercise, the acquisition process, to solicit proposals and evaluate those proposals and recommend an award. And then at the February meeting, we would have in hand the results of our grant application, as well as that acquisition phase that would be compliant with that grant, and a recommendation of who to award that work to.
And the grant it's all reimbursement based anyways, so we have to actually pay for it, and then we would just submit all kinds of reimbursement verification.
This recommendation on the sheet we got sounds like we're buying things. I mean, it sounds like you want the board to approve acquisition of products and services needed to migrate right now.
So we will still start actually moving forward with the actual acquisitions, as in getting like purchase orders and stuff, to actually start implementing it, no matter with whoever we go, with that, whichever the vendor is, because we will need to, we have to move to it sooner or later anyways, but we do want to move up in technology, and that knocks down our monthly expenses as well.
So you mentioned that our fund balance was what, again, right now?
It's right over 2.5.
Okay.
I think it's right about 2.5.
So if, I'm going to go off memory here, but I recall a $900,000 deficit last year on our budget.
On revenue, so the revenue versus expenses, yes.
Right,
So
well,
because
we actually ran negative, I do recall.
Yeah, the deficit
So-
on
For
revenue.
the last 2 years.
Right,
Yes.
so my concern is if we haven't resolved our income side, I don't see how we can approve an acquisition of anything. We'll be running negative until we figure that part out.
And when we run, there's no answer.
That's right.
We're done.
And if we don't get a grant, it's even worse.
We would be, our projections are that we would be at almost net zero, yes, but not negative.
That's not a good spot to be, though.
Right.
Yeah, with the revenues, it's super hard to be able to actually, I mean, you can always do projections, but without knowing the valid account of lines, and of course, it's wireline, that we can't predict. You know, that's just, I mean, you can, but that part of the actual revenue part is the only thing that hurts.
So that was one of our big concerns last meeting, was resolving that.
Right.
And so now we're faced with a huge purchase, which without resolving that issue, I think that's a very hard thing to support at this point, as much as it would be beneficial to the county.
Oh, we're gonna have to do it sooner or later.
Right.
I'm just amazed that this district is the last one in this area that's done it.
Yeah, this started in 2018. Ed had brought some stuff for, for some approvals and stuff. I'm just not really sure what happened with it. So it did actually, it is behind the technology wave. But it did start in 2018. I'm just not sure where the ball fell.
Yeah, I remember a lot of things being said, we're gonna have to prepare, we're gonna have to prepare, we're gonna have to prepare, and that's all I remember happening.
That's all we have notes of, too.
Yes.
The best idea, I definitely think, is basing any kind of excess expenses that aren't paid, like through us generically, is based on the revenue amounts, rather than setting a predefined amount of reimbursements or anything, going based on the actual revenue that we've actually really collected, rather than projecting and
So,
basing it all.
just before I can vote, before I can have a logical answer to this recommendation, how do we plan on fixing that in the future? Is that something we can talk about today?
You mean the budget?
No, the reason why we're having these questions is because of the recommendation by the board. The recommendation by the board, which is the recommendation of the administration to the board, I have to have a lot of more answers before I can look at that recommendation and vote yes or no.
I understand. And I'm not sure if products and services needed to migrate is what this page says. But you also said that this is a motion to move forward to request a proposal and solicit bids, or solicit.
Well, that doesn't cost
So
anything.
I'm not even sure what it is. I'm not quite sure what staff is wanting them to vote on. And so I don't know that I can answer that question because I'm actually a little confused myself.
So let me just ask this question. Is it possible that we authorize you to go ahead and to do an RFP, select quotes, and then bring that back for further consideration after we know whether or not we received the grant?
I think that's a clear way of expressing what we're looking for, is the support to...
So you're not asking us to spend any money right here?
No, I believe at this kind of expense level, we would actually have to come back with a clear recommendation of award to a vendor that's been selected. What we're asking for here is more clearly spoken to by Mr. Rice, is that we're asking for your support to engage in this activity because it does take time, effort, and some money on our part from how much labor we put into it to solicit these proposals and make this acquisition. In addition, we've added to a new flavor in the time intervening that grant opportunity. So we need time for that to mature, which we now figured out is January 24th. It was anticipated to be much sooner than that, so that has delayed us quite a bit.
What do you think the odds are we'll end up with that?
So you're asking me about a crystal ball and opinion
No,
almost.
I'm
but
just saying.
I think our odds are very good. We actually tendered an application for 1.9 in the two ZNet service sub-project areas, and GIS for 100,000, so 2 million total. They have earmarked in their little spreadsheet about how they're trying to distribute the funds, approximately 1.6 for us. So we may not see a high probability of 2 million, but we would see a high probability of 1.6.
It's kind of based on population, and like, since this was the third round of it, we didn't get round 1 or round 2, so those available funds are still there. So the grant manager directly with the CSEC,
I understand.
he said he really did help tremendously one-on-one, making sure that the grant application was turned in for our district.
So it sounds to me that if we were to authorize staff to go ahead and to go through the beginning steps of a procurement process and then bring that back to us in the spring after we know what the status is of the grant, because there's a big decision to be made. Do we spend our money or do we spend grant money? But we need to know, is grant money available? And we'll know that in the spring. I don't see any danger of having them go and do the research, go through the procurement processes, and then bring bids back for further consideration in the spring, unless y'all see some concerns with that.
Is that an action the board needs to take to
I
task them
believe
to do
that officially, we would have to give them authorization to proceed, since it's not something that's in their normal budget.
That's in the normal what?
That it's not in their normal budget to go spend this kind of money. That's not in their current operating budget.
If I could clarify possibly, when we do this kind of level of acquisition that has grant funding as a source, there is a tremendous amount of paperwork, coordination, solicitation that has to be done according to those grant stipulations. So we would move through those processes at a certain administrative overhead expense to accomplish that. That's not normally our activity. And we need to do so assuming that we're going to receive grant funding.
So
because
who
we need
pays
to
for
be
that overhead expense?
Well, right now, the way the administration is charging our time, we only charge time for the GIS techs. So the reimbursement by the board or the district to the city of Abilene for 911 services is around the GIS technicians and addressing that stuff. Charlotte and my time is not a piece of that.
Okay, but we paid Abilene, and we didn't have any of those people.
Correct. We have contractors at this point, yes. Yes, we have shifted to an outsourced model, so we have augmented staff. We don't actually have internal personnel.
And when is that going to change, when we don't have to contract outside?
We are working at, we're a little off tangent, but I think it's within the scope of how we would fund the EZNet, is that we're facing a situation where the GIS personnel are not something we're able to solicit and hire. We've had interviews, we have not been able to award or hire anybody into those positions. We continue to use augmented staff or contractors to perform that function. The city of Abilene is at the heart of that. It's our service. 911 districts buying a certain amount of that service. The city of Abilene is definitely looking at moving forward with a augmented staff contracting solution for that service. And so on a go-forward basis, we don't believe we'll have internal staff.
So the administration then is looking at doing outsourcing for this stuff?
For the GIS piece, correct.
And that'll be at the district's expense?
Indirectly, it's a city expense, and the district is reimbursing the city for a portion of that.
Where is that broke down?
We only have the 23 fiscal year budget that specifies labor or a role. What we're going to be proposing in the spring also is a revision of the budget.
When y'all say spring, you talking about February?
February.
Okay.
Yeah. February, we will be proposing a new budget model for the following year, and very likely a first quarter budget revision that we spoke of with regard to revenues and how we have those expenses today incur in the district. And so the fiscal year 24 first quarter budget revision and the fiscal year 25 budget year will correct those models where we actually ask for reimbursement based on an expense basis versus a percentage of revenue, or budget, sorry. So right now, we're reimbursing the city and Taylor County on a percentage of expected revenue versus actual revenue received, when in reality, the proposal is going to be that we reimburse on actual expenses incurred. So it's equivalent of if we used a little scenario to explain it in a little bit clearer. If we had a budget for 100,000, but my expenses ran 80,000, right now we're still reimbursing the city and Taylor County 100,000, even though our expenses were 80,000. We're proposing in February that we look at our actual expenses and reimburse those, the 80,000. And you would see that reflected in the financial statements.
I have a whole lot more questions, but I don't think they're legal.
I think if we kept it simple.
I'm being completely serious.
Oh, no.
I'm going to leave this board meeting unsatisfied with what's happened here today. You guys were great. And I don't have any problem as chairman of this board telling you to go forward as long as you don't spend no money to figure out what it's going to cost. I don't have a problem with that.
Yes, sir.
But I have a whole lot of questions about a whole bunch of other stuff that needs to be addressed sooner or later. And y'all know a lot of them, and you know some of them, and I thought we were going to do that today. I honestly did. When I got the agenda, I couldn't believe it wasn't on there. I thought we talked about it.
It was.
Okay, so I don't, I'm just going to say, I'll entertain a motion to give them approval to move forward with the quotes and all that stuff, but not spend any money. If that's what y'all want to do as a board.
I think you call it an acquisition process.
Yeah, let's call it the acquisition process that would lead up to coming back to the board with a recommendation of award. And we could amend that and say that we would answer all the questions around the details around what the chair has proposed.
And this, I mean, we would revisit this in February. And you'd have some answers in January 24th
On the grant.
on the grant.
Yeah, we would have the grant, we would have the exercise of acquiring solicited proposals and evaluation and a recommendation of award. And then we would present all of that. We would ask for a motion to approve that recommendation of award at that point. And then we would also have that budget revision, all the financial statements updated. Remember, that's going to be our new annual meeting. That's where we're going to actually make the fiscal year 25 budget proposal as well.
Is this a considerable amount of time to prepare all this?
Yes, this is quite a bit of work on our side. One of the other things we're going to be doing is in the city of Abilene, we're going to be soliciting for an accounting technician to help out with some of the accounting methods that are going to go with this. So there's going to be another person that would be added to the team to help this move forward.
At the cost of the board?
No, this is an accounting person inside of the city of Abilene.
Inside IT.
Inside of IT.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the finance division, it's within IT itself to manage finances.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we authorize staff to go ahead and to begin the procurement process, to solicit proposals, to bring back recommendations at our next meeting.
For the purpose of migration to
As in
ND911.
Yes.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 1, 2, 3 to 1. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion to adjourn and second. All in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. We're adjourned.